What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here, and in this video I'll be going over my favorite exotic armor pieces for each class. So we're going to start on the Hunter, and we'll start with the helmets. Obviously, Celestial Nighthawk is just awesome. I have loved it. I mean, it's a Red War exotic. It's always been good, but then it got power crept, and then it got a buff, and now it even gives more. Before it was just one single high damage shot. Now it also gives more super energy for precision kills, and targets defeated by that shot give you super energy and explode. So if you get a kill with this, you get like 33% of your super back. So it's better than it's ever been. It's great for bursting down a champion in one shot, for high single target burst damage on a boss. You know what Celestial Nighthawk is. It's just an all-time classic. Assassin's Cowl, this came out in Shadowkeep, and it used to give you invisibility only on finishers, but then when they made it work with powered melee final blows, I combined it with combination blow, and I used that to solo my first ever dungeon, solo flawless, in Pit of Heresy. So yeah, that's what I used in the Chamber of Suffering, and it was absolutely awesome there. It's one of the things that inspired me to start making content, because yeah, Pit of Heresy was pretty hard to solo flawless when it came out, and I thought that was just such an awesome strategy because it made you invisible, so it really allowed you to control the room and get through it with ease. And then yeah, Assassin's Cowl has evolved over time. We got Arc 3.0, it was goated there, and yeah, it's just always been a staple for me. Love Assassin's Cowl. Then we have Mask of Fealty. This is a new one, but being able to create a stasis crystal with one withering blade is extremely strong. The withering blade can slow, and then the crystal can freeze, so you can deal with overloads and unstops with just one melee, and then pair that with prismatic, where you can go transcendent and get like a ton of withering blades. It's just exceptionally strong and pairs awesome with Stylus Executioner. And yeah, I just love Mask of Fealty. Very, very strong. Onto the arms, Renewal Grasps. Yeah, kind of before Mask of Fealty, this was kind of the de facto exotic that you would use with Stasis, and I've just really always liked the area lockdown of it. I used it in Into the Light in OG Onslaught, and it was really fun and strong. Then we have Liar's Handshake. So because we have Stylus Executioner now, this has basically become my go-to, and I will try to make a build video before I move on from Destiny on the Liar's Handshake, but definitely use these, because you don't really need Assassin's Cowl anymore to go invis, because you can just use Stylus Executioner and the dodge that slows, and then yeah, Liar's Handshake basically just gives you more damage from your melee with cross counter. So it's just basically now a better version of Assassin's Cowl, because we can just get invisibility intrinsically. So yeah, Liar's Handshake, I love it. It looks awesome. And yeah, it's just a super, super solid build. Mothkeeper's Wraps, I finally came around to these last season and had so much fun with them. I've always said blinding is one of the strongest verbs in the game, and this gives you huge access to blind. So it has great utility, decent damage, high ability uptime, just really good. Triton Vice, I made my glaive build on Hunter last episode. And yeah, anyways, I just really like Triton Vice. It got a bit of a buff, I think, too, where the right here, glaive projectile final blows detonate in an explosion. They reduce like the delay that it takes. So yeah, just got a slight buff, and glaives are really good this episode, and glaives got a buff. So yeah, definitely give Triton Vice a try. Oathkeeper, I have these on here because I used to pair them with Le Monarch in Trials. And yeah, just be an absolute menace by being able to hold back Le Monarch and get a perfect draw all the time. So yeah, I've gone flawless with Oathkeepers, that's why they're there. And then Shards of Galanor. So Shards came out back in Forsaken, and they were super, super good back then. I remember in Gambit, or maybe it was Gambit Prime. Anyways, when you were burning down the Envoy, you would get like increased super energy gains. And if you had Shards of Galanor on, you could literally just spam back to back your Blade Barrage. And then they actually got a buff where Throwing Knife Final Blows decrease the cooldown of your super. So then I would pair them with the Fan Knives. And I used that actually to solo the Whisper mission when it came back in Into the Light. And it was a really, really strong strong build for that because there's so many shadow thralls, so they're super easy to kill. So you could just like keep chaining your super, and then it gives super energy returns. They have been nerfed for sure on the class item. I'll just show one of the class items that I love to use. It's Spirit of Galanor and Spirit of Gearfalcon, because you basically get the best part of Galanor or of Gearfalcon and the super return from Galanor. So it's a really strong class item. So yeah, I've always just loved Shards of Galanor. I remember they were so good in Forsaken, and when I got them to drop, because exotics were actually rare back then, I like lost it because I had heard how good they were. And yeah, I didn't take these off for a long time back in Forsaken, so they have some nostalgia value. I just mentioned Gearfalcons, but I do really love this exotic. It's very strong. This season, it might even be a little overkill because of the artifact and how easy it is to get volatile rounds. But outside of that, Gearfalcons, especially on... Well, now would be good even with on the Prowl on Void, but on Prismatic, it's very, very good with Stylus Executioner. Gifted Conviction, this came out, and I immediately gravitated towards it in the final shape. Super strong exotic. Ascension is very fun. It jolts everything, gives you damage resistance. Just a super strong exotic. Very, very good. Omnioculus, this is what I basically crutched to get some of my first solo flawless dungeons. I think I was using Omni when I solo flawless God, what's it called? Prophecy? I believe I did, but I know the first time I ever gilded Conqueror, I like solo, doing 6 solo GMs, I was using Omnioculus for at least half of them. So yeah, when I was learning how to solo GMs, Omnioculus was honestly imperative to my learning because I didn't understand positioning yet, and enemy AI as well. So being able to just run around and go invis and get extra damage resist while you go invis. So Omni is kind of like a great beginner tool to use as you're getting into soloing content, because it's basically a get out of jail free card and you get damage resistance, and it's just going to help you navigate if you don't know how to use cover properly and how to manipulate the AI in this game. So Omni, like I said, it's kind of a great beginner exotic. And even back in the day when we had the 2.0 subclasses, it would pair with Heart of the Pack and be extremely strong, and you could like spam grenades. And when we had Oppressive Darkness on the artifact, that was also very strong. So it was very good in a team setting too, because you could basically spam invis as long as you were making your teammates invis. So yeah, Omni, just been good for years. Raiden Flux, an OG Red War exotic, always loved it. That was the strat on Master Spire of Stars, was to have, I think Well of Radiance was out then. Yeah. Maybe not, no, because that was Forsaken. Anyways, maybe you just had a Healing Rift, but you'd have 5 hunters with Raiden Flux, and you would just beat down the boss of Spire of Stars. So that was always fun. And then even now, Arcstaff got a really big buff, so I am loving using Raiden Flux. Again, I might try to make a build video on that before I move on. So keep an eye out for that, because Raiden Flux is exceptional. I used it to solo some GMs last season, and it felt really, really good. Yeah, because now that we got our super back much quicker, because they reduced roaming super cooldowns, Raiden Flux is honestly very, very viable. It hits like an absolute truck. So absolutely love this exotic. It's very one-dimensional, but it does what it does so well that it's worth running. Ophidia Spathe. This has always been a build that I really like on Solar, because yeah, you can chuck 2 fan knives at an enemy and that will ignite it, and then if you get any ignition kills, that will give you both your melees back, and then you can run Gambler's Dodge to get your melees back as well. So yeah, there's just honestly a lot of utility. It's more of a lower end exotic. Like, it doesn't really shine in high end content because you got to get up close to use your knife trick, but in lower end it's very, very fun and honestly very strong. You just throw Ember of Empyrean, Ember of Ashes, and a Restoration Grenade, and you can basically have Ember of Torches, and you basically have permanent Restoration and Radiant, and you're dealing lots of Scorch thanks to Ember of Ashes. So yeah, Ophidia Spathe, just really fun in lower end content. 6 Coyote. Okay, I might have lied about Omnioculus. So 6 Coyote was Omni before Omni. Six Coyote is actually what I used when, I knew that didn't sound right, when I solo flawless Prophecy, because I could abuse Invis and you would use Gambler's Dodge. So you would have the Invis dodge, and then you would get your melee back, and then you would go Invis with the melee. Or wait, that was in the tree days. It was before Void 3.0. So anyways, I can't remember the exact gameplay loop. I just know Six Coyote allowed me to go Invis a lot, which was imperative in me solo flawlessing Prophecy. So like I said, basically all the same stuff about Omni Oculus. Six Coyote was that before Omni. It was very good on Void Hunter, and yeah, so it was just a classic for me. Love Six Coyote. Orpheus Rig, same thing, just kind of a classic. It's a Red War exotic. I always think back to the Gambit Prime days of the Reckoning, where I was just spamming tethers over and over. And then it even got a resurgence with the launch of Onslaught. But yeah, basically, it's just really good for chaining supers. Then, actually, before I get to those boots, Stompies is just a classic. When I was trying to be sweaty in PvP, this is what I would use, so more of a PvP exotic. I mentioned Galanor and Gear Falcon. That's like the main class item that I use, but I do have some other decent ones like Caliban Syntheseps, and there's another, and then Assassin Syntheseps and stuff like that, and then Caliban Liar. So those are all really good exotic class items. So now for the boots. First I'll talk about Star Eater Scales. So these came out, that looks like Splicer, but all I know is I made a video, just a quick video on Star Eater Scales, and it kind of popped off for me at the time. I think it got like 20,000 views in a day, which was insane for me because I was a very small channel. So I've always loved them for that. But then also they deal, like they really just buff all your supers. So they're very good in the right situation. They're very, what's the word I'm looking for? Versatile. Like you can run them with Gathering Storm. You can run them with a lot of different builds. So I really like that about Star Eater Scales. And then lastly, we have Lucky Pants. So the video that I've done that got the most views ever was pairing Lucky Pants with Ariana's Vow. And yeah, it was absolutely slapping back then. So yeah, Lucky Pants also helped launch my channel. I had just hit 1,000 subscribers and I made my Lucky Pants video and it got like 270,000 views in like 2 days. And it more than doubled my subscriber count. I went to like 2,300. So that was always one reason I liked Lucky Pants. But then the other reason is, yeah, they have been nerfed now, but before then, they were just really good for solo GMs. I would pair it with Warden's Law, and you could one cycle the champion solo with your Warden's Law and Lucky Pants if you had Vorpal on Wardens and like either 4th times a charm or extended mag, so that you could be dealing huge damage. It also pairs great with Malfeasance. Like I said, bit of a nerf, so not as good as it used to be, but Lucky Pants will always have a special place in my heart, just because, yeah, like I said, that video really helped kind of launch my channel. Not really launch, because I didn't have much success after that, but it was the first video that I had that really popped off. So now on to Titan. We'll start with Insurmountable Skullfort. So way back in the day, again, this is a Red War exotic. This was actually very good because we didn't have near the ability spam that we do today. But back then, this would give you your melees back every time you got a kill with your melee, basically. So it was super strong. You could also get one-shot melee kills in PvP. And every time I ran Skullfort, I would have at least 30 kill games because I was just playing so aggressively, just trying to seismic strike everyone. So yeah, Skullfort was always really fun. And that was back in the days when I did play a lot of PvP. So I just really liked Skullfort. And then, yeah, as time went on in Final Shape, we had Thunderclap on Prismatic. So I made an updated Skullfort build and it was great. I just used it again in Sundered Doctrine to solo flawless Sundered Doctrine. So yeah, Skullfort is honestly like as good as it's ever been. And now melee hits grant arc melee energy. So its one downside was if you didn't get a kill with Skullfort, you would, you'd kind of be fucked, right? So you can even see, like, I have pretty high strength, but you don't need that now with Skullfort because if you do lose it, as long as you have knockout, you can just keep getting melee hits and that's going to give you your melee energy. And yeah, then you can get your melee back right away. So that was a huge quality of life change for Skullfort. And it's now better than ever. And also, another reason I wanted to make a YouTube channel was I would use Skullfort like crazy in Gambit with oh god, what's it called? Ballistic Slam, right? Yeah, with Ballistic Slam, which gives you tons of super, and then I would swap to Curious to delete high health targets in Gambit, and then just go back to Skullfort, keep getting melee kills. I had the Crown of Sorrows, Emperor's Courtesy it was called, and I had Swashbuckler on that thing. So I would get melee kills with Skullfort and Ballistic Slam, and then use my Swashbuckler shotgun to take out high health targets. And then, yeah, for like the Envoy and stuff, I would swap to Curious. And anyways, it was just an amazing build back when Gambit was like pretty popular. And I had always wished I had a YouTube channel to showcase it. So again, one of the things that inspired me to make a YouTube channel. Cadmus Ridge Landscape, you've seen me solo GMs with this. I just think it's a funny looking exotic. Yeah, I just really enjoy this exotic. I think it's cool. It's a little bit more passive and slow. Like Mask of Fealty basically does what Cadmus Ridge Landscape does, but better. But it's very strong and very effective in the right environment, especially if you can play at distance. So yeah, I just like Cadmus Ridge Landscape. One-Eyed Mask from the Forsaken days. It was absolutely broken on launch. And I remember using it with Ace of Spades and I think top tree striker or bottom tree striker. One of the striker trees had trample, so you could just go on forever in your arc super. And yeah, with Ace of Spades and One-Eyed Mask, you could like 2-tap with Memento Mori. It was disgusting and some of the most fun I ever had in PvP. So had to throw One-Eyed Mask on there. And then Helm of Saint 14. You can't be a Titan without mentioning Helm of Saint 14. It doesn't really do too much these days, but it does give Weapons of Light. But yeah, it's just a classic, like shout out Save 14. It was a classic in D1. It's a classic in D2. So yeah, just had to throw Helm of Saint 14 in there. Probably my favorite exotic ever on Titan. Not that that's a a contrarian take. I think a lot of people's favorite exotic on Titan is Syntheseps. But it's funny because they've been out since Red War. And they've always low-key kind of been meta. They were even meta in PvP back in the day when you had the increased melee lunge range. I still try to melee from too far away because of that muscle memory. I mean, then Final Shape came along and you had the Consecration with Frenzied Blade and Knockout, and anyways, that's OP as hell. But even just like with my Glaive build, like Syntheseps works for so many things. It buffs your super. Like I loved it for the Bonk build. I said that was the best build to solo flawless any dungeon, and I stand by that. At least before Final Shape was the Bonk build on Titan. I used it to solo flawless Ghost to the Deep the night that dungeon came out. Like all these things. So Syntheseps, just it's been with me forever. I love Synthos. Not much more you have to say. Point Contact Cannon Brace. Once Prismatic came out, these became a lot better in my opinion. They would be good on Arc now because Arc Titan is looking a lot better. It had a huge glow up. But yeah, on Prismatic, I absolutely love my Point Contact Cannon Brace build. It's so good. I actually used it on my solo flawless dungeon as well in the first encounter for Sundered Doctrine. Yeah, just an excellent exotic. So much fun. I've soloed GMs with it. It's just such a fun playstyle. It's so satisfying to just take out heaps of enemies with one Thunderclap. So yeah, I love it. Worm God, same type of thing to Syntheseps. I just love it with my Glaive builds. It too had a big glow up because you could keep your Burning Fist stacks for longer. They need to do that with Winter's Guile, Bungie. If you're listening, do that for Warlocks, please. But yeah, people were setting Warlord's Ruin speedruns with this exotic because it's so powerful. Just an absolutely goated exotic. Stronghold, very, very good. And with the buffs to Flash Counter, I don't think I have a Flash Counter sword on. But anyways, start using Strongholds with Flash Counter. You're basically invincible. Yeah, so that's why I like that. It's literally an invincibility build. It's so fucking strong. Second Chance. I made my Second Chance video shortly after Final Shape came out. These are awesome. They look cool. I think I just recently got an ornament. Yeah, I don't like the ornament as much. But yeah, I just love the utility they provide, being able to apply Weaken. And then with Prismatic, we can also get Radiant from that. So yeah, you can get a Void Overshield, Weaken a target, and proc Radiant, all with Second Chance, and it stuns barriers. The one thing, and this isn't a Second Chance problem, this is a Throwing Shield problem. Throwing Shield is terrible tracking. They need to fix that. But if they ever do fix that, second chance is always really, really good. You also have 2 shield throw charges. So yeah, it's just awesome. And now with ways to build bolt charge, this will be even better because you're going to get more melees thanks to bolt charge, and you can rain down lightning. So yeah, second chance is always really good. Doomfang Pauldrons, again, D2 vanilla exotic. I've always loved the mini game that it has with trying to extend your Sentinel Shield super forever. I'm never on Reddit, but I did post one clip of Reddit where I was able to keep up my shield for an entire boss damage phase in a strike, and it kind of like popped off. But yeah, like I said, I've always just loved that mini game of making your super extend for literal minutes at a time. I think my clip was like 5 minutes long, and I was in the super the entire time. So it's always been a fun gameplay loop. It's also really, really strong. Again, roaming supers had their glow up, and I saw people soloing GMs with Doomfangs to pretty good success. So yeah, it's a low-key, really strong exotic as well that people don't really give the time of day. Ashen Wake, I'm throwing this on here because back in the day on Middle Tree Sunbreaker, this was super good. I had made a build where you could like spam your fusion grenades and take out everything in Gambit. Again, Gambit used to be a really good place for making really fun builds. And anyways, that was before we really had like too many ability spam builds. And I made this one literal ability spam. Like, it was so strong. And then you also had the throwing hammer on that tree, and it worked with 1-2 punch and roaring flames. So you could actually one-shot Gambit Primevals as well if you just switched to a 1-2 punch shotgun and stacked up your roaring flames. And yeah, anyways, and I think you had to swap to like Syntheseps as well. But yeah, you would stack up your roaring flames with Ashen Wake. Anyways, Ashen Wake, it was a really fun playstyle. I also got a wee ran out of medals with it, because once you got roaring flames going, you could one-shot people with your fusion grenades in Crucible as well. So yeah, Ashen Wake, it was a really fun exotic at the time. And then Pyrogale, I haven't used these since the nerf to Consecration, which makes me really sad, because what they need to do maybe is buff this to hit as hard as Consecration used to, because it got its big nerf thanks to Prismatic Consecration Titan, but all that really did is nuke Solar Consecration Titan. So yeah, they should buff the damage of Consecration now as well with Pyrogales, because I made a Pyrogale build. I love it. Also, look how sexy this exotic is. It's just such a cool exotic, and damn, that one's cool too. Can't wait till they sell that for Bright Dust. Anyway, Pyrogale's awesome. Then we've got Kyrus. I just talked about Kyrus in Gambit, how I would use it as a swap exotic, but now you don't even have to use it as a swap exotic. I will make a build video on this one as well soonish. And yeah, anyway, Kyrus is absolutely cooking. T-Crash hits so hard with Kyrus. It's the meta for speedruns on Sundered Doctrine right now for both the bosses. Yeah, greatly increases your Thundercrash damage, but then melee final blows while amplified also grant you super energy. Don't sleep on that part of the exotic. It gets you a lot more supers. So yeah, Kyrus is pretty much as good as it's ever been as well. Hazardous Propulsion, I've always just found it to be a super fun and cool exotic. Gives you a 35% damage buff to your rockets, which is awesome. Plus the Exodus rockets that it fires deal great supplemental damage. So yeah, just a really strong, unique exotic. Looks cool. I just really like Hazardous Propulsion. Heart of Inmost Light. Again, back when I was pretty early on in my soloing GM days, I was crutching Arc Titan with Hoyle because you could pair it with Storm Grenades. They got a big nerf, but Storm Grenades and Touch of Thunder was really, really strong. So yeah, and Hoyle's just good on... I've used Hoyle on Solar to solo the Wishkeeper exotic mission, and I've used it on Void for like huge volatility spam with Void Titan. So yeah, Hoyle, again, one of those ones that's super versatile. Actium War Rig, you had to throw it in. It's just so fun with Sweet Business. Enough said, like, just a fun-ass playstyle. And then Armamentarium, it too was just really good with Arc Titan with the Storm Grenades at the time. So yeah, you could have ran either or, and it was very good. So I thought I'd throw that in there. And then yeah, just for exotic class items, you got like Assassin Syntho and all that stuff. I don't really use too many class items, but that one would be strong. And now we go to probably my main class, which is Warlock. I love so many Warlock builds. So again, we'll start with the helmet. Crown of Tempest. I love my Crown of Tempest build, and it's even better. So I love it on Prismatic because it's just excellent on Prismatic, but I even loved it back in the day when you had arc webs, and I would use Crown of Tempest actually in PvP. And I remember getting like 5 and 6 multi-kills on a cap zone at the start of a game with arc webs. And then you would get your super really quickly if you did that. And then, yeah, your super would last so long in PvP. So it was also a great PvP exotic, but now it's still really good. And again, a Red War D2 vanilla exotic that is still very good in today's sandbox. Dawn Chorus. I made my Dawn Chorus Ignition build. I've always loved things that buff the damage of your super, like Cyrus and or Celestial Nighthawk, and Dawn Chorus does the same. Plus it gives you increased melee energy and improves your Scorch. So it's not just tied to your super. The ornament looks really cool. And even the base version looks pretty cool, pretty menacing. But yeah, I just really love Dawn Chorus. Super fun. Hopefully they buff Daybreak to give it the super return for getting ad kills like it used to have on Bottom Tree. If they did that, then yeah, Dawn Chorus would really come back into the meta. I have another world. This was like the main exotic that I would use in D2 vanilla because it was just really passive. It says highlights priority targets and improves the regeneration speed of your grenade, melee, and rift abilities. Provides a small benefit to AE, so that wasn't around back then. But just having passive grenade, melee, and rift was really good in D2 vanilla because you didn't have very fast cooldowns at all. And I always just thought it looked cool. So I remember I had a different shader on it back then, but anyways, I've always just liked Eye of Another World. It's just a good passive exotic. Fellwinter's Helm, when this came into the game in the Warmind Cell season, I absolutely loved this thing. The effect it provides is so strong, and then it really got a glow up with Lightning Surge and triple melees with Prismatic because you could run it with Arcane Needles. And yeah, anyways, that build I used for all of day one Salvation's Edge raid, and it worked great. Yeah, being able to weaken targets by 30% is just extremely strong. So yeah, Fellwinter's Helm is awesome. It's really cool if you're into the lore like Fellwinter and stuff. Just a cool exotic. Nezarec Sin, same type of thing, just a very cool looking exotic, and it pairs very well with void-based builds, so it would be very good this season. Verity's Brow, I've always just loved how powerful it is when used by like speedrunners. When multiple people are running this, you can literally spam like super high damage grenades just back to back to back because it feeds into your other teammates' grenade regen. So it has great team synergy. I wish I could use it more as a solo player, but it's just so good for teams that I thought I'd give it a mention. And then Skull of Dire Hamkara, so same thing with Orpheus Rigs. It just takes me back to the Reckoning on the bridge where you were just either spamming Well of Radiances or you were spamming Nova Bombs with Skull of Dire Hamkara. So yeah, again, a D2 vanilla exotic. It too got a glow up recently where you get more super energy for getting kills with Devour. And yeah, it's just a fun, cool looking exotic. Onto the arms, you know I love Necrotic Grip. I love poison and damage over time. And this thing is very, very good, especially when Osteostriga came into the game. And then even now, with like Arcane Needles, you can apply it from so far away. You unravel with the Arcane Needle and build up poison damage over time. So yeah, Necrotic Grip, super, super strong in all areas of the game. Ophidian Aspect, if I wasn't running Eye of Another World, these came out in Curse of Osiris, then I was running Ophidian Aspect with my weapons because yeah, back in D2 vanilla, and we'll consider Curse of Osiris, the whole first year I consider kind of vanilla. It was a double primary meta, so being able to have fast handling and quick reload speeds was actually very effective. So I used Ophidians a ton in PvE, and then they've been my PvP exotic since I got them. They used to have increased melee lunge range, which was so nice, especially on Stasis Warlock, because I could freeze people with my Rift and then follow up with a melee really easily with Ophidians. And yeah, just awesome. They make every gun feel just buttery smooth to use, so I love Ophidians. Sunbracers, I love my Sunbracers builds. They're so much fun. Love spamming abilities, and Sunbracers allows you to spam abilities like no other, especially after we got Solar 3.0. So yeah, again, a Red War exotic that is very good in today's sandbox. Controverse Hold, these came out in Forsaken, and Oppressive Darkness was on the artifact at Shadowkeep, actually, I think it was. And that's when these got really, really good. But they also used to be very good with Middle Tree, because it had Handheld Supernova, and I would abuse Controverse Hold with Handheld Supernova, and that's actually how I got Luna's Howl, and eventually how I got Not Forgotten was with that playstyle. Just getting double kills with my Handheld Supernovas and having like super high ability uptime on them. And then yeah, in PvE, they've always been great. Just a classic exotic. I'm throwing Nothing Manacles in here too, literally for one reason. The season that we had the Shattered Realm, which was the season I think these came out in, I used them to solo flawless one of the really hard Shattered Realms, and the only reason I could, because back then match game was in the game, and so you pretty much had to match all three elements. So I think I needed an Arc Energy, and then I had a Solar Heavy, and then there was also tons of Void Shields in this tiny little room, so I was just spamming Nothing Manacle grenades, and I was able to get through it. So I thought it was a very unique and powerful build, so that's why I like Nothing Manacles, and they look pretty cool. Baladors, I'm kind of throwing these in here for the same reason as Star Eater Scales and Lucky Pants, even though I like those exotics way more than this one. But this one is pretty decent now. It has seen a glow up. But the reason I like it is, again, I was a pretty small channel and I made a video on Baladors and it got like 180,000 views. And that was huge for my channel at the time. So yeah, that one, I'll always just be thankful for that, for again, just helping me get some exposure in the YouTube sphere. And then Osmiomancy are great. I used them, I think it was Season of the Wish. It was before Final Shape anyways. I used them to solo flawless some GMs. And yeah, they've just been great ever since they came into the game. Allows you to really spam Cold Snaps. You can also spam Bleak Watchers if you want. Just really strong. Let's talk about Phoenix Protocol, because I talked about Skull of Dire Ahamkara. So the other one, this was a Forsaken exotic that you would use in Reckoning, was Phoenix Protocol, and you could just spam Wells on every plate that you had to capture on the bridge. So that's why I like Phoenix Protocol. And there is like a build with Hierarchy of Needs where you can pretty much just get unlimited supers with Phoenix Protocol. So it's less useful than it used to be because we're just so powerful, but like this used to be a great defensive exotic for GMs back in the day when you really needed to rely on defense to get through things. So yeah, shout out Phoenix Protocol. Don't really ever use it anymore, but yeah. Motiodoxia, same thing. I've loved this since I got it in the Final Shape. Your Arcane Needles can pierce barrier champions and they can suspend. So again, I love utility, and this gives you a ton of utility, and it's sexy as hell. So just a super awesome exotic. Then we have Vesper of Radius. I love anything that allows you to spam abilities, and this allows you to spam Rifts, which you can also pair with Bomber and Outreach to get a ton of grenades and melees. And it also provides Blind, which is very effective, and you can run Dynamo to get huge chunks of super energy when you cast your Rift around enemies. So it's no wonder I like Vesper of Radius so much. It was never great when it came out in Curse of Osiris, but over time it got better, and it's just a really, really fun playstyle. It allows you to be very aggressive. Stormdancer's Brace, I'm throwing this on here just because I've always loved the idea of it. It came out in Shadowkeep. It's what you got for completing the Shadowkeep campaign. And basically it just makes your Storm Trance deal a ton of damage, and it refunds super energy. So yeah, I've just always loved the idea of it, and now it's finally like decently strong. It just got another buff in Episode Heresy, so it's dealing huge damage, and Storm Trance got a buff, so it's just a really fun exotic. I used it also in Day 1 Vow of the Disciple. Then we have Mantle of Battle Harmony. Again, I've always just liked it. It's one of those versatile ones where you can throw it on any build. You get increased super energy, and you get increased weapon damage. So just a really good exotic. And then Rhymecoat Raiment. I made a build video on it at the start of this episode saying it's pretty much like the meta Warlock exotic, which it is for like GMs and stuff, because the stasis crystals that you can make when you chuck them around enemies There's 4 of them, so they deal massive AoE, and you compare that with Devour to get like tons of Bleak Watchers. Just a very, very strong and powerful exotic. Then we go to the boots, Lunafactions, same thing. This is from the Red War days. It just takes me back to, yeah, the auto-loading meta where people would just put down a Lunafaction Rift and eventually a Lunafaction Well, and it would auto-reload your weapons, so you could literally just shoot things like Loaded Question, Mountaintop, Swarm of the Raven, literally just mag dump anything, rockets. So it was very powerful back in the day. Swarmers, because I love my Threadlings build. Not much else to say about that. They're not necessarily that strong, but I do just love builds that I can make Threadlings around. Transversive Steps. This is for PvP or anytime I have to get around quickly. So I remember throwing on Transversive Steps and Worldline 0 back when Worldline skating was in the game, and I taught myself how to do that on controller back in Season of Opulence. And so yeah, transversives are they just feel really nice to use. They also improve crouch speed, which is very, very nice. And then of course, finally, my babies, Geomags. They were awesome when they came out. They were one of the first exotics I got after Forsaken. Hadn't even seen YouTube videos about what they did or how good they were. Turns out they're amazing, and I still love them to this day. I wear them whenever I can, and the Geomag build is stronger than ever. I will try to have a build video out this weekend going over my version of the build, and yeah, it's just excellent now. You get massive super energy every time you pick up an Ionic Trace, which is not hard to do. Does huge damage with the Chaos Reach, and now you can build up Bolt Charge with them as well. So yeah, Geomags, they were nerfed for a little while thanks to PvP and Trials, but now they're back and basically better than ever. And yeah, also people always ask about Necrotic and Syntheseps. So that is a very good build. And the other one I really like is Filaments and Starfire, because you can get Devour, and then Empowered Weapon Damage recharges grenades, plus Devour gives grenade energy. So this is an absolute grenade spam build if there ever was one. And then Assassin and Syntheseps is also really good. There's some other decent ones, but yeah, back to Geomags. They're just one of my favorite exotics of all time in the history of Destiny. So yeah, I've just loved using them year over year, and I'm having so much fun using them right now. I use them in Sundered Doctrine, and they're great on both the final boss and the Zootech lock set. And yeah, anyways, that was it for the video. Those are all my favorite exotics over the 7+ years of Destiny 2. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like, and yeah, that's about it. I will catch you guys in the next one. Take care. Hey, if you're still here, then thanks so much for watching to the end. If you like what I do and you want to support me further, then consider becoming a channel member. You'll get your name featured on the end screen, custom badges, and other cool rewards. You can also join my community Discord if that interests you, and if you want to see me stream, be sure to follow me on Twitch at itstizzle7 where I stream semi-regularly. Those are linked in the description. Anyways, that's enough self-promotion. Thanks for watching. Take care.